Saturday, May the 5th, 1945. Most Czech territory is still under Nazi control, but the Czech longing for freedom has been corked up for too long. A morning broadcast by the Protectorate radio service begins with announcer Zdeněk Mančal deliberately mangling his Czech and German. "It is 6 o'clock," he says. The uprising has begun. The Czech general public begins to revolt. By 10 a.m., insurgents occupy Prague town hall. Across the Protectorate, angry mobs begin hunting down collaborators. After years of oppression, Czechs are rising up against Nazi oppression. German radio director Thurmer calls for help from the SS. By 11:30 a.m., a 40-strong SS unit heads towards Vinohrady. At a crossroads in Anděl, Prague, a German officer threatens to shoot his way through the insurgent roadblocks. Czechs' thirst for revenge is unleashed. False rumors spread throughout Prague. American tanks are advancing from the town of Beroun. Karl Hermann Frank is under arrest. Allied forces are landing at Ruzyně airport. Suddenly, a sense of hope and optimism replaces the atmosphere of fear. But the German occupiers call for the Schutzpolizei to enter the center of the capital. The Nazis clearly believe they can still suppress the rebellion. German troops follow orders, but react somewhat apathetically to the uprising. Soon, the atmosphere begins to harden. A group of around 30 Prague citizens tries to reach a Gestapo building in Bredovská Street, but is thwarted by gunfire. Euphoria and chaos grips Prague's streets and squares as vehicles loaded with the first insurgents arrive. In Prague's Vinohrady, radio staff hang Czechoslovak and American flags on the building. At 1:30 p.m., Czech police and troopers set off to aid in the battle for Czech Radio. At 12:33 p.m., announcer Stanislav Kozák repeats his urgent calls.
Voláme české vojsko, české četníky, přijďte i hned do Českého rozhlasu, přijďte nám pomoct. Přijďte nám i hned na pomoc.
Nazi authorities close off Wenceslas Square, setting up machine gun nests at 3 separate points. At 1:15 p.m., under mounting pressure from Czech police and civilians, Schutzpolizei officers begin to withdraw. Many join in destroying the despised symbols of Nazi rule. At the corner of Wenceslas Square and Jindřišská, a crowd breaks into the publishing offices of Deutsche Arbeitsfront. Finally, Czechs are bidding good riddance to the Nazi propaganda machine. After 6 years of terror and mass murder, the sense of relief is palpable.
Voláme všechno, co je české, na pomoc Českému rozhlasu. SSáci zde vraždí české lidi. Pozor, vchod z Balbínovy ulice je volný.
Many out celebrating have no idea that a battle is raging for Czech Radio, in which many Czechs and Germans are losing their lives. Pilots Kraus and Janča carry out a reconnaissance mission. The first group of 17 Czech policemen arrives at the Czech Radio building. They immediately come under fire, unaware that the Wehrmacht now has SS reinforcements in place. A crucial chapter of the Prague uprising begins. Hundreds of Czechs race towards Vinohrady to help the radio staff. Some are unarmed, but many have managed to get hold of rifles and Panzerfaust anti-tank weapons. An armed group marches from Charles Square to Gestapo headquarters at Becek Palace. In Škrétová Street, crowds of angry Czechs seize German military vehicles. Nazi soldiers are powerless to resist. The battle rages in full at Czech Radio. Enemy fire rings out from the building's windows. Many insurgents risk their lives. There is little chance of taking the Czech Radio building via the front entrance, and so they shift the battle to the side street at Balbínova. One of the first victims of the battle for Czech Radio is patrolman Jaroslav Bilák. Stepping outside carries risk of death. Individual insurgents find themselves in dramatic life or death battles. Many of them have no formal military training. A makeshift field hospital is set up at the former Hlavková Cafe in Náměstí Míru. Here alone, 180 critically injured insurgents receive medical treatment. Armed battles also rage in Wenceslas Square. In spite of ever-increasing danger and growing casualties, many curious civilians remain on the streets. Vinohradská, back then known as Šverinová, comes under fire. Trams and fire trucks bringing reinforcements become stranded near Czech Radio. Both sides suffer considerable fatalities. At around 4 p.m, insurgents march approximately 30 German civilians from a nearby administrative building in Slezská Street along the perimeter of the Czech Radio building as it comes under attack. German machine gun fire. A firefight breaks out after a German shoots at an arriving Czech insurgent. Balbínova Street sees 3 German civilians shot dead. On the corner of today's Vinohradská Street, machine gun fire mows down another 9 escaping Germans. Following heavy fighting, some SS officers retreat underground into fortified positions. Czech fighters respond by trying to drown out the Nazis with water. It revives painful memories of how the Nazis flooded out the assassins of Reichsprotector Reinhard Heydrich in 1942. Before 5 p.m, a convoy of Nazi troops departs Waffen-SS headquarters at the law faculty in Pařížská Street and heads for the Czech Radio building. Tense negotiations end in impasse. By 6:30 p.m, the convoy's commanding officer is forced to capitulate to the insurgents. Disarmed German troops are then released. The insurgents capture Czech reporter and Nazi collaborator Alois Kříž as he tries to flee the scene. A symbol of protectorate propaganda, now Kříž must be taken away lest he be lynched by the angry crowds. Kříž is ultimately hanged for his crimes in March 1947. At 5:40 p.m, on May the 6th, a jet-powered Messerschmitt fighter targets the radio building with a 4-ton bomb. Within 80 minutes, radio staff set up a provisional studio in the workshop of a transmitter located in Strašnice. On May the 6th and 7th, the Germans carry out bombing raids on the Czech Radio building. The bombing devastates the inner part of the National Museum, erroneously targeted by a Messerschmitt pilot. On the morning of May the 7th, Czech Radio staff complete a secret studio at the Hus Choir Chapel in Vinohrady. An insurgent tank unit repels a German attack on the Strašnice transmitter. The battle for Czech Radio continues on May the 8th. In Balbínová Street, Staff Captain Jaroslav Záruba, the man who led the radio uprising from the outset, is killed by mortar fire. On May the 8th and 9th, the Nazis begin fleeing Prague. Local fighters have managed to successfully defend Czech Radio. Czech Radio was the only liberated radio station broadcasting from inside Nazi-held territory not yet taken by Allied forces. More than 170 radio staff, troops, insurgent fighters and civilians fell during the 4-day battle for Czech Radio.